All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Natalie Santa Rosa. This is actually going to be my very first video that I put together where you can actually see my face, okay? Bear in mind that I have decided to put together videos for you all that are going to be more on the content valuable, all right, will be very large. But as far as video quality, crazy editing and cuts, it's going to be like zero. Okay, so really what I wanted to do is I hear from a lot of people that they essentially feel like a lot of content that's put out there in the building your online nutrition business world seems like there's a lot of it. But as far as actual actionable steps, it seems like there's a lot lacking in that. Okay, so what I wanted to do was be able to create great quality videos for you where I would spend more time on putting together what I'm actually saying rather than spending a ton of time editing and making this look cool. Okay, so it's not going to be very visually appealing. All right, just keep that in mind now. Okay, but anyway, so today kind of what I decided as my first topic for you all is going to be about perfectionism. Okay, so a lot of people have an issue with perfectionism. Some people realize it, some people don't. Okay, but perfectionism is actually the root cause, all right, of what's keeping you stuck and paralyzed. All right, so I know in nutrition you talk a lot about root causes versus symptoms of things, right? That's a normal language to use. Okay, well in business, there's often root causes of something else, okay? A lot of times one of the biggest problems I ever hear is that, the person can't get clients, like they're having a hard time building up a clientele, getting enough clients for their private practice, right? Or their online nutrition business. Okay, that's usually a symptom of other different kinds of root causes, okay? And something that's at the root of a lot of people's issues is this perfectionism thing, okay? And I, for one, used to think that being more of that type A perfectionism kind of mindset was the way to go. But then when I started building my business, I realized it was just keeping me stuck. Okay, I would be spending hours, I don't know if you've done this, you may have done this, spending hours designing my website, spending hours designing my business cards, wanting to make a video absolutely perfect, feeling like I couldn't do anything, okay, until it was perfect. In fact, if I had tried to record this video previously, it wouldn't have been possible because I would have probably micromanaged, all right, every little last detail that I did to put together this video. And it would take an obscene amount of time and it'd be kind of pointless, all right? And so a lot of times that's because we have an issue with perfectionism, okay? Perfectionism, I don't want you to think of this as a good thing anymore. So I want you to reframe perfectionism, okay? And reframe it to be a mindset issue. Okay? And it's actually rooted in fear. Okay, so what do I mean by that? All right. Oftentimes, what we tend to do is that our brains will, in a way, kind of rationalize what we think is the best thing to do. Okay? What do I mean by that again, right? So if your mindset is all about perfectionism here, okay? An instance of this might be like for me, for instance, okay? I used to hate posting anything on social media, hated putting my face out there, didn't even like to take photos of myself. This is not an exaggeration, okay? I'd absolutely hate photos of myself. And so what I did is I told myself, I'm just not really a social media person. Or one of those, I just want to be able to make sure I'm putting front this professional image of myself. I want to be sure I'm presenting myself well. And so I would, essentially just take up an enormous amount of time, okay, for no particular reason to accomplish anything, all right? And what happens is when you have this kind of perfectionism thing, you think that you're doing this. Like you think you're making progress because you're spending all this time on tasks and everything, right? And you think you're going forward, right? And like, let's say that this is time, right? But this is not what's actually happening because you're not really accomplishing things. Like nothing's getting accomplished here. So this is more of what's happening. And that's you, okay? And as long as you get stuck on this perfectionism thing, this is what it will be for you, not this, all right? So, now I want to discuss a couple more things of, how this applies to you. And then we'll get into how to really overcome this, all right? So, what you're really doing is you aren't, you saying to yourself, oh, I just want this to be perfect. Perfect. Really just means, oh, I'm actually just scared to put myself out there. And this is what your brain is doing, okay? Your brain is just rationalizing your fears, okay? That's all that happens at this end of the spectrum of everything, right? This is what's actually going on in the inside, okay? If you really think about it. This is what's going on in your subconscious, and this is what you think is happening in your conscious. But this is not really the truth, okay? And here's the thing. Is that you honestly, in all true honesty, okay, perfectionism is kind of like it's a flaw, okay, because what you're doing is you're trying to build something without any kind of feedback from the market, okay? So feedback from the market means getting actual feedback from the people who want to work with you, your ideal client, right? And when you just try to design something in your head rather than trying to really, really, put something out there, even if it doesn't feel ready, because newsflash, it's never going to really feel ready, then you're doing things the wrong way, okay? And so I talk about this sometimes of, sometimes you want to think to yourself, it would be like doing this. So perfectionism is essentially like this. It's you thinking to yourself, what does my best friend, no, let's not say best friend. What does my, let's just say coworker, okay, want for her birthday? Okay? And so you sit there and you don't really know this person super well. All right? You kind of know them, right? But you're not best friends with this person. Okay? You just kind of know them in the office. And, sometimes you speak, but you don't know them on a really personal level, right? You talk to them occasionally, but then this is what you do. Like, this is what you're doing in perfectionism when you stay stuck on this perfectionism thing, okay? Then here's what the perfectionist does. They say to themselves, okay, here's what I'm going to do. All right, I am going to go ahead and sit here. Just sit, okay? Just sit here and think about what that person wants for their birthday, okay? And so then you spend, let's say, 3 hours, okay, sitting and thinking about it, all right? Maybe if you're lucky, okay, if this hasn't really infected you that much yet, right? Maybe you just sit there and think of it for 3 hours, okay? And then here's the next thing, okay? Then you proceed to go ahead and buy this person a gift, okay? You buy the person and, you spend all this time researching it on the internet, like with what you think that they would want, okay? You buy and you research, right? And yeah, okay? And then what you do is you go ahead and you present it to your coworker and you're like, happy birthday. And they're like, oh, thank you. But they didn't actually like it that much, okay? And this is literally what people do when they put together online courses, okay? And they sit and think to themselves, what do people want? And then they put together something and it takes them like a year to put it together. And then you launch it and then it's just crickets. So you spent a year and you made like little to no money. It doesn't make sense. All right, this does not make sense. Don't do this. Okay? Now, instead, what you want to do is you want to create something that's minimum and viable, okay? So you create something minimum and viable after you ask that, maybe the coworker, or you ask the coworker's friends what they actually want for the birthday. Or you ask your niche, or you go do actual research and look at videos where your niche is talking about what their experiences are, right? And what they truly say about it before even designing anything. Okay, so you actually ask them directly, or you go and look at things that they've said hidden on social media pages and really get a good idea of what they actually want. All right? Now, after you do that, you put together something minimum viable. Okay? Because here's the thing, all right? A lot of us think of perfectionism as something linear, right? We're perfecting it so it's getting better, right? And then here's the end point, right? So, and then this is perfect. Right? That's what a lot of us do, okay? And that's why we don't create something minimum and viable. I'll explain what I mean by these two terms in a second. All right, but, a lot of us are like, oh, I'm going to create the perfect thing. I'm going to create the perfect website, and when I get it to here, it's going to be the best, right? Because that's the perfect mark. That's where you land on the perfect mark, right? That's how it works in your head, right? But here's the thing. This is how perfectionism should work, okay? It should work in kind of a cyclical, right? A circular way of you go up here, you present it to the market. You get feedback from the market. You make it better. You present it to the market again. You get feedback from the market that tells you you need to add additional stuff. You don't know what whatever you're working on needs until you present it to your actual niche or ideal customer. Okay? You're not going to know in your own head. All right? Because you're not them. Even if you've had similar experiences as them, you are not them. So the best thing to do is to be scientific about it. Right? Stop being, this is kind of like an emotional process, right? This is emotional. Okay? This is not scientific, all right, at all. All right, this is just emotional. Like, once I get it to be perfect, then I'll feel good. Then I'll feel comfortable. This is about feelings here, okay? You need to be more scientific here, okay? That's what you do in science. You test things. If they work, great. If they need to be improved, you improve it. You know, what I like to talk about a lot of times, and even my husband and I discuss sometimes, it would be like if Amazon got upset every single time, or took it personally every single time someone returned a product to them. No. Amazon is just going to take this stuff as feedback, and they're going to just try to see how to make it better. And that's what you should do. Okay, is you should be scientific about this stuff. All right? And work this way of making something, presenting it to the market, then you get feedback from them. And you go and you go and you go. And this is an evolutionary process, right? So instead of there being like a dead-end destination, okay, this is like a destination, right, that you're trying to reach here when you're in this perfectionism mindset. What you need to look at is everything that you build for your clients, whether that's a program, whether that's packages, whether that's whatever you're making, okay, at the moment, it should be evolutionary, meaning there should be a version 1 that you present to the market. Then you get feedback, okay? Then you make version 2, you present it to the market. They give you feedback, and you make it better and better and better. Instead of thinking that on the first go, after tons of hours you put in, it will be perfect, and then you can just leave it be, and it'll be awesome, and it'll be great, okay? Because when you do this, it doesn't end up perfect. Because then you present it to the market and nothing happens, and then you feel like you're a failure when you didn't actually fail. You looked at failure, right? You looked at this feedback from the market as failure instead of putting this into this evolutionary process, right? This scientific process of determining what, and keeping, what you're making on kind of a growth path, rather than thinking there's a destination, right? This is ongoing. This shouldn't even have an arrow at the end of it, okay? This is honestly like this, okay? And this is a problem, all right? Whereas this is like, maybe this is version 1, it's okay. This is version 2, it's getting better. Version 3, version 4, and you should consistently be trying to make it better, okay? It's just like when, you should always be trying to improve your knowledge in nutrition, right? You wouldn't disagree with that. You'd say that's the best idea ever. I love learning. I want to be in this continuous learning process. That's what business is too. It's a continuous learning process where you get feedback from the market and you try to make things better. Okay? And that's the only way to make things better. It's not to hope and keep going along this line and spending all this time until you reach some sort of destination where you feel ready, and then you launch it, okay? That's not going to work out very well. So instead of doing this, right, which doesn't work, okay, you're going to create something that's going to be like your very first kind of test, right? Create something that's a test, okay? Something that's minimum and viable. All right, so think of minimum viable as something that doesn't take a tremendous amount of time and effort, all right, but still very much works and gets people results. So what do I mean by that, right? So bare minimum would be like, you have this raft, okay, this little raft that you're hanging on to for dear life. Excuse my drawings here, you all. This is just for visuals, right? Okay, and here's this raft, okay? And that would be minimum, right? Because you design, let's say you're the one designing the rafts. Okay, this is minimum, right? All right, and then imagine that, you know, there's a boat, okay? You're trying to design something to get people to a different destination, okay? So someone might design a raft, right? You could float on the raft, hopefully float there, okay? And that's the bare minimum, right? But then if you design a boat, okay, and here's a little paddles things. All right, if you design a boat, this is not a tremendous amount of time that has to go into some sort of boat, right? It's minimum, but it's also viable. It's actually going to get people to where they want to go. All right, this is bare minimum. It's a raft, but this does not look that safe, and I probably wouldn't want to buy this, okay? This is minimum and viable because it's not going to take a tremendous amount of time to make a basic boat, right, with some oars here. Okay, so it's minimum and viable. All right, and then let's imagine, I don't know how to draw a cruise ship, you all, but let's imagine, I know that doesn't look like anything, okay? Let's say this is one of those huge cruise ships, okay? And you're in here. That's you, okay? This is not minimum at all, but it's going to get people amazing results, right? They're going to love being in this cruise ship. The problem is you don't know how to build the best cruise ship until you build this. So if you skip to here, this will probably sink. It'll be like the Titanic all over again. Okay? Instead, you build the boat, make sure that you got this down pat. People are actually happy because they're getting some sort of results, right? And then you work on building this big cruise ship product, right? So this is how we overcome this perfectionism thing. This is what's much better than perfectionism, is thinking of this as a circular process rather than a linear one, okay? So, now I gotta erase again, you all. Let's see here. Okay. So now that we understand the issue, right, and we understand that this is a bad idea, right? Okay, so how do we overcome perfectionism? Okay, because here's the thing that I've noticed is that, you know, once you realize, okay, so this characteristic about myself is getting in my way, right? Then what's the process of actually overcoming perfectionism, okay? How do we overcome this, right? And sure, change sounds like a good thing in theory. This is the thing. You might think, okay, great, I've got to change. But when it comes down to actually changing, this is tough. All right, this is not something that's going to happen automatic. This is not something that the next day you'll be like, oh, I'm making all this stuff and I feel good about it. Because remember, perfectionism is emotional. Okay, and you've got all this kind of emotional ties to this perfectionism kind of characteristic. You know, you've kind of ingrained it into yourself deeply and it's become a part of your identity, right? So then when you go to change it, it can be like, okay, great, I need to change, but this really just doesn't look very good. And I just don't really feel good about this. And I'm just not going to do anything. And then you end up doing nothing. And then you're still stuck and you're still paralyzed. And nothing happened, right? So how do we actually overcome this perfectionism thing? Okay, that's the thing. All right, so I'm going to talk about a couple of different things. All right, so I'm going to try to draw something again, y'all. Let's imagine. Okay. Maybe that's the problem. That's a head. Okay. If you're curious. All right. Here's the thing. Okay. To kind of understand how you change, we have to understand a little bit about how the brain works here. All right. How this little brain works. Right. Okay. So essentially, this is how it works. There's kind of like a line here when it comes to developing memories, when it comes to developing an identity for yourself. Okay, and above this line is explicit memory. And below the line is implicit memory. And implicit memory has to do with the identity side of things. So it's something that is created over time since the time that you were born. Okay, our brains are kind of like little sponges where we just take from the environment. And so over time, you know, this perfectionism quality becomes very, very, very ingrained into who we are. It's ingrained into our programming. It's like where you're a computer and you push a button and then you go back to this perfectionism thing because you push that button, because that's how your brain has been programmed to function. Okay? So when you're trying to change, that can make things very difficult. All right? Because this perfectionism thing is down here in this implicit memory space. All right? And then, all right, we have explicit memories, which is the thing, you know, that's the kind of stuff that you use. Those are the type of memories that you use to try to remember your grocery list, to try to memorize something, to try to learn something new. Those are explicit memory. Okay, that's explicit memory. All right, here's the thing though. Implicit memory is kind of like below this line. So when you try to push up on it, it doesn't really budge. All right, the only way to change this, all right, to change this perfectionism quality is to actually work on this explicit memory, which is the conscious side of things, right? Implicit memory is subconscious, explicit memory is conscious. So how do we do that? Okay, you need to be feeding yourself, all right? One, feeding yourself new thoughts from the explicit memory into the implicit memory. You know, and being like, okay, I'm a person who takes action. You know, I love taking action even when I don't feel 100% prepared. Okay, so that's step one, right? That sounds like affirmations, right? So step one sounds kind of like affirmations, right? But this still won't get you very far, okay? Because the thing is you're not completing a loop to make change. All that's happening is you're dumping down here and nothing's coming up. So that's not going to be helpful. All right? This is part of the process. This is step number one. Step number two is to create new implicit memory the same way the implicit memory was originally created. You created your implicit memory by looking at how something was done, deciding that it needed to be done that way, and then actually acting upon it. Okay? It's to take action. So take action regardless. Rip off the Band-Aid. Start doing things in any tiny, minute details of your life whenever it doesn't feel ready. Does that make sense? So that might translate to, okay, you just put that photo online. You don't really even spend that much time on it. You just put it up. Okay, that can translate to a host of other different things where you're no longer staying stuck in this perfectionism. And it may seem minute, but what you're doing is you're completing this loop. Okay, back up here. And what's happening is that over time, this perfectionism will get kind of like overridden because you'll have created so many implicit memories about taking action even when you didn't feel ready. Okay? And the thing is that changing perfectionism or changing really any kind of quality about yourself that you feel like you need to change in order to progress has nothing to do with how much time is spent. Okay, it's not a time thing. All right, it has to do with how many repetitions did you do of you acting differently. That's the key. Okay, and so you just have to be kind of repetitively ripping off the Band-Aid, repetitively feeling sick to your stomach because you don't like doing that, because that's not the way you've operated, until eventually what happens is it kind of becomes a little bit like what, if you've ever done sports. Okay, it seems like this, where initially, whenever you try something new in sports or anything to do with any kind of athletic thing, right, your muscles feel kind of wobbly. You don't feel steady. You don't feel like you really feel comfortable doing whatever you're doing. Okay? Well, if you keep doing that thing so many times, eventually it becomes like second nature. It becomes what's called muscle memory, right? So we need to, have some better muscle memory when it comes to this. And the only way to get there is by taking action. Because really, the taking action part is the only thing that a lot of people are missing. Okay? A lot of people talk about affirmations, all right, but you're never going to be able to really, really make true change without this piece. Okay? And yeah, it's actually, I know it sounds simple, 2-step process, right? 1, start doing some form of affirmations daily. Okay, really get into those feelings of how you would feel if you weren't a perfectionistic person. Okay? And then the second thing is to take action. Even if it feels like your stomach's in knots, even if it feels horrible, right? And completely against your nature at first. If you keep going and you keep going and you develop that muscle memory, pretty soon you'll be acting like a different person. And that person is the type of person that can build a successful business. Okay? Not the person who gets paralyzed and stuck by perfectionism. The person who decides to get feedback and really act upon that feedback. Okay? And that's the best way to go. So again, I know I'm just going to wrap this up. But again, I know this video quality probably won't be the best. But yeah, let me know if you enjoyed it as far as the information that I included and found it helpful and found that you could really start doing a few things differently in your business so you could start seeing some progress. All right, and I'll see you next time.